Welcome to our Tuesday morning Bible study presentation. My name is the Reverend Michael Drew Davis, and I'll introduce you a little bit about our church. We are North Coast United Methodist Church, and if you would like to have more information on us, go to ncumcinfo@gmail.com, ncumcinfo@gmail.com. Send us your name, your email, and we'd love to get information to you about our church. And if you're looking for more ways to learn about our church, even looking for a way to give to our church, if you've been watching these videos, we are at love@ncumc.org. North Coast United Methodist Church, ncumc.org, love@ncumc.org, and you can go to our website, see us, see the things that we do when that we're in the normal world, and there is a giving option on that page as well. So today we are into our Tuesday morning Bible study. Now, this last Sunday, we talked about the experience of Jesus Christ going back to the disciples, and Jesus Christ meeting the disciples once again where they first met. It's pretty exciting to begin to think, daydream over, to pray over what it means to go back to pivotal places in our lives and to celebrate these pivotal places for what they had helped us become. During our video presentation and our Sunday services, I started out in our Sunday school room. There's so much in my life that has been drawn from being a participant in Sunday school, being a participant in Vacation Bible School, being a Sunday school teacher, being a youth director. There's so much of my life that has grown out of being in this experience of a Sunday school classroom. I also showed our social hall, and there's so much in my life that has grown out of the necessity of church being a communal experience, church being a social gathering, church being a place where people look forward to seeing other people, interacting with other people, just being together. And so we celebrate that. And then, of course, I showed our sanctuary because of the numerous times that someone has heard the message of the grace of Jesus Christ and has chosen to respond to that grace. All of these first places where that we have an action and interaction with God's love. Now, there's this beautiful thing in our lives that I commonly have to point out, and this will shock many of you. I'm not perfect. I'm going to shock you, gang. You're not perfect. And there's sometimes in our lives that we deal with life's imperfections, that we have to deal with the negativity that comes from our imperfections, the negativity that comes from our faults. And a lot of times, that negativity and those faults can actually help us move closer towards our strengths. And I want to share that with you because there's a lot of times that we run into a fault and we need to, like in this scripture, to go back to the first place that we had a really strong interaction with our faith. The first place that we proclaimed that our faith was ours. The first time that we said Jesus Christ is not just a historical figure, but Jesus Christ is the individual that I turn to that has set me free from many things. I want to share with you because there's a lot of times that we don't experience that until that we deal with our imperfections. And because of that, it actually becomes our imperfections that pushes us to change and to grow, and it's our imperfections that become the most positive things in our lives. Very recently I was asked, what is the first thing that I want to do when the world, quote unquote, comes back to normal? And I thought that would be a question I would have to think hard over, but I didn't. I had an answer very quickly. I want to go bowling when this is over. I want to go bowling when the world opens back up. Bowling, just as much as my faith life, bowling was a very important communal experience for me growing up. I joined the Young Bowlers Association, the YABA, when I was 4 years old. That was the first league that I joined. And I bowled every Saturday until I was 13, 14, maybe 15 years old in YABA. And then and I'll share with you, because there was money leagues, and and I was becoming this teenage person that liked spending money. I started bowling in adult leagues when I was 15, 16 years old, but I bowled for a better part of the first 21 years of my life in different leagues. I remember very well one of the things that helped me adjust to the new environment of being in college was one of the first things that I did was I joined a bowling league my first year of college, and that was probably the best I ever bowled too, in a new set of lanes, a new house, and bowling has just been a really great communal experience for me. But I'll share with you, it's the imperfections that made bowling more exciting for me. I'll share with you, there's this, when I was a kid, and I still think about this quite frequently as an adult, I began to wonder what it's like to be in a heavenly state, what it's like to be in heaven. You know, everything I grew up hearing was heaven is this place of perfection, and all of our flaws are gone, and it's a place of perfection. And the one thing I always wanted to do, and I never did, the highest bowling game I ever had was a 249. And the best average I ever had was 189 average going through bowling. And when I got to this idea about heaven, I thought about how cool would it be in this place of perfection if I bowled a 300 game every time. You know, every time you go to the bowling alley, you bowl a perfect game. You know what's going to happen. You know you're going to knock down all 10 pins every time and have a 300 average and just be in this place of perfection. And I started to think, you know, for a while, that would be really awesome cool. Especially being a person in my flawed imperfection state, that my highest game was only ever a 249, and I never quite grabbed that brass ring of a perfect game. Now it's been so long since I've bowled, I don't think that I can even remember my form or stance, much less how to roll a ball down the lane. But I started to think, man, it would be really cool if every time that I bowled a 300 game. And then I started to think, if I'm in this place of eternal perfection and eternity, and every time I go bowling, I know that I'm going to bowl a perfect game, I started to think about how boring that would become. How that it would actually steal from the excitement of doing this. How it would actually steal from the joy and the pleasure of not knowing if I was going to have a good night or a bad night, not knowing if I was going to pick up that spare, not knowing if the lanes were oiled in a specific way that I was going to hit a pocket and get a strike. That brought the excitement out, and I began to think, wow, if I threw a 300 game every time, I would actually start to not like bowling. There is an importance of our imperfections. And that importance of our imperfections is really seen in this scripture. It's the third time that Jesus Christ is seen after the resurrection. The first time at the tomb by Mary. The second time as he walked into the room and showed Thomas the scars on his hands and the scars on his side. And the first time was Thomas. The second time was the road to Emmaus. And then the third time that he was revealed after the resurrection. I forgot the phrase after. I cannot include the resurrection or I'll get the four. Um, and then this moment that he reveals himself to the disciples as they're fishing again. See, the perfection of imperfection is it becomes the thing that continues to make life exciting. It's the thing that continues to challenge us to go back to our first place of interaction and to go back and cherish what that first place of interaction really means to us. You know, if we found Christ and we immediately became perfect, where is the challenge or the joy of being a servant? Where is the challenge and the joy of being the hands and feet of Jesus Christ? Where is the challenge of the joy as we go out and we interact with other souls and introduce Jesus Christ to them? If we're in this place of perfection, what we actually begin to do is we begin to forget what it meant to need Christ. If we're in a place of perfection, we begin to forget what it means to be dependent on something outside of ourselves. And as we sit in these moments of imperfection, they hurt in a moment. Sometimes they're very painful. But the other thing it does is it adds to the spice and the excitement of needing something outside of ourselves to carry on the journey. Again, it's like I just explained to you. If I was perfect and I threw a perfect bowling game every time I stepped on the lanes, I would become very bored. I would become very just lost in the moment. There's a danger of achieving perfection, but it's the flaws. It's the imperfections that makes things more exciting. When you don't know if you're going to let go of that ball, if it's going to end up in the gutter or the pocket, that's the excitement of it all. And when I sit in a moment that I am truly dependent on something outside of myself because of my imperfection, is when I truly value what that provides. When I hear the phrase, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life," there's two ways I can interact with that, and one way is very scary, and one way is very hindering. If I look at John 3:16 through the eyes of individual benefits, the quest of perfection, then I get lost in something that's just for me. And what happens when I get lost in something that's just for me? Other people get lost and they are hurt and they are left struggling to find their place in a greater story. But when I remember the phrasing, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son," it becomes both for me the challenge to continue to remain grateful for the gifts of graces of Jesus Christ and to step out and step forth and to share those gifts and graces with others. I want us to hold on to that because, yes, we are called and we are inspired, as John Wesley phrased, to move on towards perfection. But I also want us to remember that as we move on towards perfection, we still deal with the imperfections. And there's two ways to look at the imperfections. One is they're painful, they're hurtful, and we hate them and we want them to go away. And the other is the imperfections become the challenge that pushes us and motivates us to truly appreciate what Jesus Christ has done for us and become the eyes and the hands and feet to look for other people who need to receive those benefits as well. So that's the conversation for the Bible study for May 5th. How to truly value and appreciate life's imperfections so that we can value and appreciate the perfection that only comes through the gifts and graces of Jesus Christ. So here's the questions that I would like for you to deal with as we go through, as you go through this narrative on your own. The scripture from this past weekend was everyone going back to the first place they had a connection with Jesus Christ, because they were in a place that they needed to be in that place. I want you to think about that first place that you interacted with justifying grace. The time that we realized Jesus Christ is real. If you haven't gotten to that place yet, ncumcinfo@gmail.com, email me. Say, hey, I haven't had that experience, but I'd love to go on that journey with someone. Email me, I'll talk to you. Love to talk to you. PastorDrewDavis@gmail.com is my direct email for that. The other thing that I want us to do is also to appreciate that first place, because what it gives us. Because it gives us that thing outside of ourselves. So that's the first prayer activity. The second prayer activity is I want you to look at your greatest weakness. The thing that you claim is your greatest weakness. And I want you to pray through how that greatest weakness has inspired you to work harder in other places. I've shared my learning disabilities, and I've shared how that my learning disabilities could have been an anchor, but they actually became my motivation. And they're still the imperfection that I deal with, but they're the imperfection that pushes me to be a better person. So I want you to, secondly, think about your places of imperfection and how they push you to try harder. And then third, and this is the most important part of the story, there is a mentor present who shows the way. Jesus Christ was there at the beginning of the story and called them to be fishers of men, and Jesus Christ is there once again revealing himself at the first place that they had their initial connection. And through that revealing himself begins to have conversations with the others that enables them to be set free. Hold on to those things, and that is the Bible study for May 5th. My name is the Reverend Michael Drew Davis. God bless you.